Okay, we are recording and we are live on YouTube. Take it away, Jack.
Okay, we'll call to order the June 10th meeting of the Victorian Village Commission, conducted virtually by WebEx. The next monthly business meeting will be at noon on Wednesday, June 24th, 2020, virtually via WebEx. And the next regular commission hearing will be at 4:00 p.m. on Wednesday, July 8th. Again, a virtual hearing to be held via WebEx. The times and dates given on the agenda are incorrect. The ones I've given are correct. Let's swear in staff. Kimberly, state your name, please.
Kimberly Bernard.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, we have all the commissioners present.
Hold on, Jack. We have to swear in Jamie as well.
Oh, Jamie.
I have to. I could leave.
I didn't know whether you were going to watch or participate. Jamie, James Goodman, do you swear or affirm the testimony you will give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. I will try to keep quiet, but I'm here if you need me.
Now you can interrupt at will. All right, we have Sean Conyers, Aaron Moriarty, Liesl Kodheimer, Jeff Hissam, and myself, Vice Chair Jack Decker, present. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes of Wednesday, March 11, 2020, which I'm sure we all remember vividly?
So
Motion to approve.
Motion by Hissam. Do we have a second?
second,
Second by whom?
Conyers.
Conyers. Any discussion? All in favor? Let's see. Aye, that's Hissam, aye. Aaron?
Aye. Aye.
That was Liesl, aye, and Sean.
That's Conyers as well. That's correct.
And Decker, aye. So that passes unanimously. Do we have a public forum today?
Staff has not received anything for a public forum.
All right. Do we have a motion to enter the staff approvals into the record?
So move.
So move. Who was that? You need to state your name. That's Conyers, right, Sean?
That's fine. That's Conyers. Yes.
And do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say, let's go, roll call. Hissam. Aye. Aye. Aaron.
Aye.
Aye. Liesl Kodheimer.
Aye.
Sean Conyers.
Aye.
Decker. Aye. It is done. All right. Applications. Shall we go through our applications? What's first?
Jack, do you want me to read off the number and the address, or would you rather do that?
You can do it. There's no reason to do that.
Agenda item number 1 is VB-20-06-010. This is the cap on Goodell Street between High and Park Streets. The application is for a summer spray paint demo art installation. The installation will include, as originally proposed, 3 sides per the submitted site plan. The idea is to have side A be about 200 feet long with an 8-foot high wall composed of 50 panels for the artist. Side B will be 76 feet long, the same tall, with 8 panels for the public. And side C will include a pedestrian barricade fencing. The art installation, as originally proposed, will be up from June 1st, 2020 to September 1st, 2021. I did receive an email from the applicant that there's a little bit of modification due to COVID they're altering what they're doing as well as they're altering the time frame. But when I pass this over to Caitlin Dunn, I will let her explain a little bit more. I do want to mention real quick, the items for discussion include the short north design guidelines, the design principles that the well-placed public art should be encouraged as a means to build on the district's focus as a center for creativity, placement of public art in public spaces such as parkland, plazas, and sidewalk cafes is encouraged. Public art should be designed and installed as to not damage or visibly obscure contributing buildings or building elements. HPO staff feels that the placement, scale, and design of the proposed project is appropriate and in line with the Victorian Village Commission and the Short North Design Guidelines. We recommend approval, and I will hand this back to you, Chair, to swear in Caitlin Dunn.
Caitlin Dunn, where are you? There you are. Caitlin, do you swear or affirm the testimony you will give tonight is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? You're muted.
Oh,
There you go.
I'm good.
You're good now. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give tonight will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. Do you have anything to add to what staff has said?
I think Kimberly did a great job with the overview. To echo what she said, there are some slight adjustments. We are not doing kind of a public activation anymore, where originally we were going to a wall where the public was going to be able to paint as well. But we've been working with the Columbus Public Health Department, and obviously advised that that might not be the greatest thing right now. So it really is just going to be side A, which is the longer wall. We have 10 artists selected. We did a call. We'll be doing a process on the panels for 10 weeks. Pretty much ran over everything in the application, but happy to answer any specific questions. We are working closely with ODOT. We got a permit for them. And then we have our Columbus Art Commission final meeting next week. We were conceptually approved last month.
Any discussion? Thank you.
Yep.
Any discussion, any controversy about this at all?
Okay with it.
Somebody want to make a motion?
No concern.
Motion, this is Codeheimer. Motion to approve is submitted.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Moriarty. Any further discussion? All in favor? Oh, let's do this roll call. Let's see. Aaron is in the first box. Aaron.
Aye.
Sean.
Aye.
Oh, you're moving around. Jeff.
Aye.
Liesel.
Aye.
Decker. Aye. Motion passes. That's that.
Thank you.
Next application, please.
Is VV-20-03-004, 1127 Neal Avenue. This application is for removing asphalt per the submitted photos and site plan, installation of new grass and planting beds, removing existing fence along the alley, and installing a wood privacy fence on the east side of the garage, installing a new 3-car parking pad east of the existing garage, as well as a brick walkway between the house and garage per the site plan and submitted brick sample. The applicant has provided the materials which the commissioner at the March hearing. Design of the new patio would remove existing patio from the neighboring property. The proposed landscaping appears appropriate. I do want to note that gravel is not a City of Columbus approved parking surface and should be removed from the design. Staff does recommend approval with the caveat that the parking pavers eliminate the pea gravel between them. And I'm going to turn this back to you, Chair. I believe we are swearing in Andrew Gardner.
Mr. Gardner, are you around?
I am.
Let's find the right box. There you are. Mr. Gardner, do you swear or affirm the testimony you will give tonight is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Do you have anything to add to what staff has presented?
Well, I guess I just wanted to clarify. My understanding from the last meeting was that a combination of gravel and pavers would be acceptable. I was clear that just straight gravel would not be. So I was, I guess wanting clarification on that could I put 12 by 12 inch pavers, which I've selected, and then use this gold dust gravel, which is a decorative gravel. I can minimize the space between the pavers, if that would make any difference, from say 4 to 3 inches. Just get your thoughts on that, please.
Let me interject something. I'm unclear on the city's position. For instance, I assume grass is not an approved parking surface. But if grass is among pavers in a permeable parking application, then that would, it strikes me, not having looked at whatever rule this supposedly violates, that it's maybe a different kettle of fish when the primary parking surface is pavers.
Okay.
But I don't know. I'm waiting for a response from the city, whoever wants to give one.
This is Codeheimer. Is somebody pull up the spec again? I'm trying to open it and not getting it open.
And I'll apologize for the ugly picture that I found ahead of time. If you scroll down, there should be the very last right here.
There you go. Okay. So
The grass, again, I don't necessarily need the grass there, unless that.
So what's the paver material?
It's concrete. What I picked out, and I'm afraid, and I apologize for not having this to you. It's a 12 by 12 inch by 1.5 pewter square concrete step stones. And then the material I've requested it's a 1/4 inch gold dust crusted limestone.
So the gold dust is actually a nice material. It's what's at Columbus Commons in the gravel sort of area where the chairs and tables are. I mean, aesthetically, I think this is appropriate. What I do worry about is its longevity.
Mr. Chair, it's 3312.43. And I can read it to you. I will summarize that. That's required surface for parking. The surface for any parking area, including but not limited to parking, loading, or stacking space, circulation area, aisle, or driveway, shall be designed to control stormwater runoff and be improved with Portland cement, asphaltic concrete, or other approved hard surfaces other than gravel or loose fill. That's 3312.43. Thank you.
Thanks, Jamie. Yeah, so
It sounds to me. So it sounds to me that they're just talking about straight gravel versus what this is.
yeah, but the thing is,
I think this is.
I don't want gravel is because it doesn't stay in place. And I think if you're driving on this, even if it's fancy gravel, it's gonna not stay in place, not look good.
Okay, my understanding, excuse me, I'm sorry. My understanding is that the gravel by its nature packs. It's a good packing gravel and isn't just loose. So I was hopeful that by, say driving on it in this particular case, it'll further help pack that surface down instead of being a loose gravel. Certainly like in that picture, I can certainly see what they're talking about, how that could get kicked around and not look very good.
And quite frankly, it deals with the water runoff situation too.
Well, I'm the only one here who probably knows exactly what gold dust looks like. And I mean, it's essentially limestone fines, but it's yellow colored. Not like naturally yellow colored. And it is a nice material, but again, it's the containment of it, which is the issue.
Liesl, is it round like pea gravel or oval like that, or is it
Like crushed limestone.
more like crushed limestone?
It's what's at Columbus Commons.
Right. I had a non-compliant approved in the 1980 crushed limestone parking pad that lasted 12 years around the corner from the applicant on West 3rd Avenue. I think that you're going to lose some of this gravel out into the alley, but not a lot, particularly when you've got these pavers that are going to be supporting most of the weight of whatever vehicle you put in there. And I understand what Jamie read to me, but I agree with Jeff that that's talking about the primary material, because we have in the past encouraged people to use other things that are not listed in the code provision. Jamie talked about light grass or other permeable materials, and I just don't think it means that. So are we ready to vote or not?
So I think I'd be willing to entertain this if some extra information was submitted. So if there was detail given with, what the edge restraint material is. I don't know, are you using a stabilizer in it? Is that part of the mixture? Because I know Langstone offers that, and that helps to keep it in place and helps to keep it compact. And then also just the thickness and the base material.
Okay. I don't have those details, but certainly Toyota Landscaping is doing our project. And I'm sure I could get additional details to the specifics on that.
Okay.
That's a good, I think that's a good idea, actually.
Yeah, I have one more unrelated question. What is the privacy fence going to look like that is going to be installed?
I'm sorry, Jack. What I wanted to do is just continue to use, as you see, I'm not sure the term for it, that split wood fence, which is, excuse me, on both sides of our property. So we want to just continue what's already there.
Ordinarily, we don't approve shadow box fences like that. Does any other commissioner have a problem with doing that, considering that it's an existing condition elsewhere on the property? I wanted to
problem with it.
You do?
No concerns.
Do not.
Do not. Thank you. I don't either. Anybody?
No, I'm okay with it.
Concerns.
Good.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
any motion should include the reason why, because of that existing condition.
That wouldn't be a bad idea. Do we want to break this into two parts, or do we want to make the gravel issue something sent to a subcommittee, or how do we want to handle that? Any thoughts? Any motions?
I'll be okay with a subcommittee. This is Sean.
Or you could send it to staff.
I recommend you send it to staff with the retaining detail and the thickness of the base materials as Commissioner Koptheimer has recommended.
Well, if that works for somebody, let's have a motion, please.
Motion, this is Kodheimer, to approve as submitted. The fence and the shadow fence as since the existing condition is that condition, and the paving restraint and thickness and section detail should be sent to staff for review for the parking pad.
Do we have a second?
A second.
Second.
Conyers.
Conyers was first, so the first with a second, so second by Conyers. Any further discussion? Let's see, not all in favor. How about Aaron? Are you in favor?
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Liesel,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Decker, yes. Motion passes.
Great. Well, appreciate your time this evening.
Thank you. All right. Next project, please.
Item number 3 is BV-20-06-011, which is 1255 Neal Avenue. This application is for the rebuilding of a former 2-story porch at the rear west elevation of a house per the submitted documentation. There is a change from the previously approved design, including openings, height of the first floor, ceiling, second story. The Monesty panel rail design is changed, as well as railing balusters and columns. The porch is to be painted per the submitted paint chips. Items for discussion includes proposed elevations do not match previously approved COA number VV-19-09-009. Details of window and doors do not appear to match existing, and the floor height seems to be a little bit too high on the new drawing. Staff does recommend approval with the condition that the new plans be revised to match existing details and more closely match details from the previous drawing to recreate the former porch. And I believe Brenda Ruff is here to explain the application. Chair, if you'd like to sign her, to swear her in.
Ms. Ruff, please raise your hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you'll give tonight is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. What have you to add to what staff? And I think
also
you
sorry.
you've cut in and out, but I think you do need to explain why what appears to be a big change in the height of the floor of the porch is necessary.
Yeah, I'd like to include in this just Don here.
You're cutting in and out and we can't hear you.
I'd like to include Barry Demos. He's the designer of this project.
Very good. Where are you, sir?
Okay, I'm right here.
Looking for the right box. Raise your hand. There you
Waving
are.
my hand. You
Do
see
you
my hand?
swear, do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give this evening is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. All right,
Okay, so can I just explain a bit?
please.
Okay, really our intent was to match as close as possible the previous drawings, with the only substantial change being the not using the built-in box gutter detail. I'm really a little confused, I guess, on floor heights and stuff, because our intent is to match what was there before. We obviously have to tie into the heights of the existing home. So that catches me a little off guard in terms of the floor heights being different.
If you look at drawing A4, it sure looks different.
Okay.
Oh, considering a step down from the original door opening on the original certificate, original application. Is that what you're referring to?
I don't know. I'm just saying there's a lot more space between the top of the door and transom on your new drawings than there was on the old ones.
Well, it's
And
really a matter of just matching the floor heights. We really have no control over that unless we had a stepping down from the existing floor surface, which I don't think we want to do.
And is that the current condition?
Yes.
Well,
All right.
currently there is no porch there. It's been removed
Right.
for safety issues.
Or it was the condition?
It was the
Well,
condition.
it may have been on the first floor, but not the second, I don't believe. I think the second floor was where there was no step down, and there may have been on the first floor, but I don't know because I didn't see it before it was torn down.
All right. Well, I've monopolized this conversation far too long. What else would you like to?
I think, Jack,
Yes, Commissioner Ism.
I think if you see this middle picture, you can see that there's not that much room over that transom, and their drawing shows a lot of room over that transom.
Okay, so we're not moving any openings, so the drawing must be off a little bit.
The drawing's off a lot, actually.
But really, essentially, we're just tying, and you can see on the back where the old floor system tied in on the second floor, which we're going to tie in the exact same spot. And
Does anyone see any other problems with this?
Well, I think it's compound. This is Conyers. I think it's compounded a little bit because of if you look at the drawing that's up on the screen. I think the previous COA, and you look at the elevation. There is a step down. There's kind of a the limestone sill that is there, and you would step down to the porch. And so, the number of treads that are being shown in the previous scheme versus the number of risers and treads that's shown in the previous scheme. And that porch elevation, it is lower. So if you look at this elevation here, you step down, and what's represented is kind of a limestone sill that is being expressed. And then if you go to the elevation as being shown now in the proposed.
Got it.
It seems like the elevation of the porch is right at let's just say the threshold or sill condition of the true door opening itself, so I think what that does is that it makes that kind of elevation appear squatty, and then at the same time I would agree that there's probably some lintels and things of that nature that's shown in the drawing or that's not shown in this drawing to start to grow that door height accordingly. So I think it's compounded, but I think the sill condition is incorrect in terms of where the porch is placed.
You think the porch ought to be down below the sill below the door?
That is correct.
Absolutely.
Yes,
Yeah.
Traditionally you would step down onto the porch and you would let that lintel or that sill, that limestone sill express itself. That's correct.
That is what I was thinking. And I guess the only other I have another question because the new drawings show a 6-panel transom, which strikes me as odd. Is that intentional? Applicant?
We don't intend to change out the transom at all. I think that's just representation of a transom.
Got it. And the existing transom is a single pane. Is that correct?
It's a decorative inlay, yes.
I'm sorry, I just had a power outage here, so I was kicked offline for a little bit. So this is Gary, I'm back.
Any other discussion?
So real quick, staff would like to mention the door also looks wrong. Like the drawing doesn't match what's actually there. I know we had covered the transom, but I also do want to point that out as well.
Door on which floor? First?
Door. Yep.
That one? Good door.
We're not changing the doors.
We're not changing doors, no. And if you look on the original COA,
So we're not changing any openings.
I think that's just a screen in the photo.
Got it. I was looking at the drawing.
So I guess the first application was correct in how it detailed the actual building. This new application, I keep hearing it's a representation, but without having those corrected, we end up leaving ourselves open to interpretation, I think.
We need a new set of drawings. I think so.
Can I have a clarification? Is that a new set of drawings with the step down and the accurate door representation
And transom,
and transom, even though we're not,
second floor level.
okay.
I think that's it. Have I left anything out, commissioners?
This is Conyers. I just have a couple more just questions quickly, and I won't labor over them, but I just want to. I think the gentleman mentioned earlier about the water management as far as removing of the box gutter. I kind of picked up on that in terms of evaluation, but I wanted to understand, given this porch and this condition of cover, what is the water management, condition? How are you going to, treat and protect, the detailing, et cetera, that is being applied at that kind of that band board?
Okay, so we're going to have the gutter on the upper roof level, and we're not going to put any gutter on the intermediate level, just crown molding, and then the new roofing will go out and extend over the crown molding.
Okay. All right. Just long-term durability and I guess what I just long-term durability and things of that nature in terms of replacement. It probably is going to impact that over time, which is understood though.
Yeah, but there will
I think Jamie and go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, there will be a rubber roof membrane on that's underneath the decking on the second level, on the intermediate level. So that'll be a good rubber membrane roof protecting that.
Does that drain by evaporation or does it go somewhere?
Well, it's going to have a slight tilt on it, and it'll only catch just rain from wind, because the upper roof level will catch all of the runoff from the upper roof.
So then it'll just run off.
It'd just be like an open porch, basically.
Sean, does that satisfy you?
I understand the condition. I guess, more so it's just long-term durability. But I think as Jamie had and Kimberly had kind of talked at the beginning, that once some of the detailing is, at least picked back up, and I think it really has to do with, the proper extensions on the decking related to the fascia, and those kind of conditions at the lower porch as well as the upper porch may start to help mitigate some of those items. But I understand that this is more of a cost condition more so, and I guess I was just looking at the long-term durability of it. So, okay.
Might a greater overhang for the upper roof help? Or do you think that's enough?
No, I just wanted to point it out from a durability long-term standpoint. But I think as the gentleman said, he's going to, correct the detailing and try to pick up some of those details that are lost. And I think it has to do with, the relationship of the front fascia or band board to the decking itself, getting the proper extensions and getting those transitions that will help some of the conditions that he's expressing.
Yes, that's correct. On these drawings.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do we have consensus about this?
So,
how do we want to handle the new drawings? Do we?
Staff approval.
Staff approval okay with us?
Yep.
I'm okay with it.
Can we have a motion? Anybody remember what all the problems are now?
Yeah, I'll try.
Okay, good. Sean, do
I'll
it.
try. I'm sorry.
Conyers.
Uh,
Yes, sir.
Yes, Conyers. A motion to approve as submitted with the following changes. That the porch elevation would mimic the existing conditions, meaning step down from the sill condition, or I should say the threshold of
Not
the
the
rear door.
existing condition, but the previously approved set of drawings. Because the porch is gone.
That is correct. Everything is
Got
in
it.
reference to the previously approved set of drawings. Thank you, sir.
All right, continue.
That the detailing at the porches and those terminations of the bandboard and fascia and decking will be picked back up from that were shown on the previously approved set of drawings, and that the new drawings will correct the proportions of the existing to better align with the previously set of drawings or previously approved set of drawings. And those revised details and drawings will be reviewed by staff.
Do we want to add that the new drawings will also show the proper doors and transoms?
Yes, so the existing elements to remain will be represented more accurately to better mimic the previously approved set of drawings.
All right. Does that work? Do we
Sounds
have a
good.
second?
Second, Moriarty.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor, Moriarty. Sean, you're in the first box on my screen. How do you vote on your own motion?
Aye. Yes.
Ms. Moriarty, how do you vote?
Aye.
Who's next? Jeffrey, Mr. Hissam. Is that an aye?
Yes.
And Ms. Kodheimer, how do you vote?
Aye.
As do I. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Next.
Item number
Please. Hi, Kim, what's up?
Item number 4, VV-20-06-012, 216 West 3rd Avenue. This application is to remove the existing tile pathway in the rear yard, install a 14-foot wide by 30-foot long in-ground pool per the submitted documentation, surround pool with the slab pavers as well as a paver path. Permeable pavers have been encouraged by the commission in the past, and the commission has supported and approved pools in the past as well. Staff recommends approval, and I believe we should have Keith Spears and or Michael Carroll here. So Chair, I'll give it back to you to swear him in.
All right, who's here for the applicant? Is that Keith Spears? You're muted.
Keith Spears.
There you go. Do you swear or affirm, Mr. Spears, that the testimony you will give tonight is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Very well. Do you have anything to add?
No, let me just say that for about the last year, I've been working with your staff, formerly Miss Moody and now Miss Barnard, as well as the Department of Building and Zoning, AEP, Time Warner, Columbia Gas, to make sure that we had all of the P's and Q's in order before bringing this petition to you. And so you see the samples that were submitted as well as the drawings. And so if I can answer any questions, I'd be happy to.
Discussion, any questions?
I have a question. This is Moriarty. I'm wondering about the distance on the right side of the drawing, which I assume is the east side. The distance between the edge of the pool and the fence line, it looks like the measurement is the distance from the edge of the pool to the property line, but is that going to leave proper access on that side of the pool?
It is. So the way that, I'm not sure exactly why, because this was before I purchased the home, but there are actually two fences. So there's a fence, the property line is actually beyond the fence. So when we were talking to the city about what we needed to do, that we have to be a certain distance from the property line. And then there will be, as you can see, there is a tile, I think it's 3 feet on the side of the fence that will allow for anything, but any maintenance to the pool and those kinds of things can be done from any portion of the pool. It's only 14 feet across.
It's bigger than my pool. That's a joke. I don't have a pool.
Funny.
Thanks, guys. Okay, yeah, I guess, yeah, I was more concerned, I mean, maintenance, yes, but also like if there's an emergency, if someone could like be rescued from that side of the pool.
They can be.
Okay.
Further discussion? Have we a motion?
Make a motion for 20-0601 2, and that's 2016 West 3rd Avenue as presented.
216 West 3rd. Do I have a second?
Second.
That's Liesel?
Moriarty.
Moriarty, very well. Any further discussion? All in favor, let's start with Mr. Hissam.
Aye.
Ms. Moriarty.
Aye.
Who's next? Ms. Kodheimer.
Aye.
Mr. Conyers.
Aye.
Mr. Decker, aye. Motion passes. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
What's next?
All right, moving on to number 5, VV-20-06-013. This is 29 West 3rd Avenue. The application is for the removal of an existing one-story frame addition, construction of a new single-story frame addition with an elevator in the rear. Addition siding would be boral with an asphalt roof and aluminum-clad windows. The elevator would be clad in either brick or wood shingle siding. Both options were turned in with the packet material, as well as adding a garage behind the addition and elevated per the submitted documentation. The proposed garage siding will be boral to match the addition. Replace non-original porch columns with new columns per the submitted documentation. Things to keep in mind include additions should be lower than the original roof height, and exterior siding should offset it from the original structure. HPO staff does not support connected garages on historic buildings. I've also included the 1951 Sanborn, just in case everyone wants to know what the historic layout was. Staff does recommend approval with the condition that the garage design be revised to remove any connections to the addition, or that the garage be removed from the design. I believe we have Dean and Steve here from Urban Order. Chair, if you'd like to swear them in.
All right. Dean Berlin and Stephen Hurt, raise your hands, please. Swear or affirm that the testimony you will give this evening is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes. Yes.
Let the record reflect both witnesses have answered affirmatively and are sworn. What have you to say for yourselves, gentlemen?
So after the last meeting, the previous proposal in March, we were trying to make the addition and the connector and the elevator all sort of be one addition. I think it was recommended to us that we make the elevator an element. We also had the connector at the height of the elevator. So we dropped that down, and then we clad the elevator in a separate material. Connector in so that the elevator will read as a tower. The one-story addition already is about a foot inset from the existing, and we will use those. The new foundation will be in the footprint of the existing addition. And then if you look at the site plan, you can see how the garage element, it's forward of the elevator connector. So, and then it's further back. So we have created that as a separate structure. So we put that little roof on there to make it appear as if it is a separate piece. The other concern that I think was brought up in the March meeting was that we are eliminating parking, and this is a commercial office, and then there's a residential carriage house in the back. So what we tried to do was keep the same parking, or keep as much parking as we could on site by having everything accessed from the alley. So I think we've got a unique situation that we've got this side alley, and then we've got this carriage house in the back. So we can't have we can't have interior parking or a garage because the carriage house already exists back there and it's all residential. And we have this side alley to access what we are trying to make read as a detached single car garage. And then the porch columns are just aluminum round, the worst kind of replacement columns you could get. So we're planning on putting in a turncraft with the correct proportions, and all the other porch details stay the same.
Could you explain again why you can't have a second detached garage back there, other than the fact that it would occupy more parking spaces?
I think that's the reason, is it would occupy more parking spaces. And when we presented that separate detached garage, I don't think people were excited about it. And I know we talked about connecting it. And as Kimberly said, you know, staff doesn't support that. But we're trying to sort of weigh in parking and making it appear as detached as we could.
Anything else on behalf of the applicant right now? Discussion.
I think they have done a remarkable job with this. Are you doing the metal siding on the elevator shaft?
I would prefer to do the metal panels on the elevator shaft.
Because I think it's important that I think the composition that you have does not pull away from the house, nor does it add to the house. It's quite nice. And I think if that shaft was metal paneling or something like that, it becomes more sculptural versus when I see it with the brick and the siding, it almost looks like a huge chimney of some type. And I think this, with the metal, it reads as it should read. And quite frankly, the garage, I'm fine with how that reads also, considering what the lot is. I think this is almost everything we had asked for, but that's my opinion. I think it's great.
Anyone else?
This is Liesel. So yeah, I would echo Jeffrey's comment on the elevator. I'm actually remoting in from Savannah, Georgia right now. And within a block's radius, there's very similar elevator additions on some of the historic inns, essentially houses turned into business. And they typically are sort of, sculptural. I mean, you know what it is, an elevator. And they might be glass on one side. They're a very like refined material that's separate from the building because it's an addition. So I think that's appropriate. I am still having trouble with the tiny garage though. So I think the elevator and the rest of the addition looks super handsome, but the garage just seems bizarre to me.
Anyone else?
This is Moriarty. I agree. I like this material usage better than the previous application. I am kind of wondering about the garage. It does look very small. I guess, wondering to make sure that that is the correct dimensions that are shown here for a 2020 sized car.
It's a 12-foot wide garage with a 9-foot door. So it is, you're not putting a monster car in there.
Okay.
Anyone else?
Yes, sir. So this is Sean. So I would agree. I think option F, I think is great. I would just, kind of think about the color selection of the metal panel. And, just in terms of, if it's dark or if it kind of goes away or if it's light or just, its composition. So it appears sculptural, but at the same time, there's some sense of blending with the existing, the existing color scheme of the building itself. As far as the garage, I think we, as a collective group, were a little nervous about having kind of 3 objects, potentially occupy that site. But in this case, it's kind of snug or kind of hugged up against in a comfortable manner that it appears that it's somewhat separate as a detached, but it still is, you get a sense of ownership that is dedicated to this home, and then the separate carriage house towards the rear of the property is its own thing. So I think it's less competition amongst the elements. So I think that I'm okay with this option that is put forth in front of us this time.
Sean, did you say you wanted that wrapped in copper?
Yes, completely.
I just wanted to make sure.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And I would amend my statement and wrapped in copper.
You'll have to check with your client, I guess.
I get a comment here. I'm with Liesel. We go with attached garages, but only when we can't find another option. And here it's really a choice between a garage with some storage that's detached and sacrifices an additional external parking space, and what we have here, which is a car and maybe a couple rakes, and that's about it. And I don't think you're getting much function out of the garage, and it kind of looks all jumbled up. If it were separated even slightly from the chimney, yet it were in a material that matched the addition chimney elevator and was in a material that matched the addition, it would not, I think, look like just a big clutter of buildings. Your carriage house way in the back would be separate enough from these 2 buildings that they would go together, whether the garage is attached or not. So I'm with staff, and to the extent Liesel wants the garage separate with her. But I think that about as good a job as can be done has with the rest of the design.
If it helps you in any way, the garage is deep. So we do have storage. And we purposely, changed the roof peak or the roof slope and
Of the garage?
yeah, so the roof slope is low, the garage is steep, and tried to make that a distinct element by having it protrude closer to the alley.
I also think that if we do a kind of a darker metal on that elevator shaft, that visually provides the space, Jack, I think that you're talking about, spaces away from the house. Because if we do the elevator and then like 3 feet of space and then the garage, then I think that starts getting busier. But if it's all kind of wrapped together with that darkness behind it, I think that recedes. And so I think different parts of the building will pop at different times.
Agree with that.
Maybe we ought to have two motions, an A and a B. One for everything but the garage and the other for the garage. And I think we still have an open issue with exactly what the cladding will be on the elevator. Is that right?
And we can submit all of that.
Right.
I have one more question first, Jack. There's a fence existing right now, right, with an electric gate. What is the condition going to be with that? Is that just being removed or?
That is going to be removed. We are working with a landscape architect who will be presenting plans based on how this goes.
Yeah, but since we're changing the parking in there, we're anticipating that whole fence and gate goes away, so it's open to the alley.
Okay, thank you.
The property lines are also a little fuzzy between all of these buildings.
Not a bad idea.
So let's keep going, you guys.
Okay, let's have A for everything but the garage. Somebody want to move to approve as submitted with the material to be sent to staff for a subcommittee for the elevator shaft?
Yes, I move to approve everything except for the garage as submitted with the cladding material for the elevator to be submitted to staff for approval.
To whom? Just for staff?
Yes.
All right. Do we have a second? That's Codimer, second. Was that Hitsam? Jeff, did you second? You're cutting in and out, but I saw your mouth. All right, further discussion. All in favor, Moriarty.
I'm good, yes.
Hurt, you can't vote. Who else is up here?
Yes.
Liesel.
Yes.
Conyers.
Yes.
Hissam. Decker, yes. Motion passes. B. Garage is submitted, I would suppose.
Staff would just like to make a quick note that if this does get approval, I will want reasons for approval, please.
All right. Do we have a motion? Somebody.
Okay, I'll do it, Jack. Moriarty, so motion to approve the east elevation F as submitted with the attached garage, noting that the metal panels on the elevator shaft will visually separate the garage from the main structure, and I suppose pending material approval on that metal panels.
I think point of order, we've already approved the everything back to the garage already. We just did that.
Okay.
So I think you're just calling out that condition as supporting the approval of the garage part. Is that accurate?
Correct.
As you,
I'm sorry?
It's as a unique condition with the elevator shaft being the background and making the visual separation between the primary structure and the attached garage.
I would also point out unique, which is the existence of a carriage house on the same parcel.
agree.
Agreed.
All right. Do we have a second?
Second.
I think that was Hisson was first that time. His mouth moved first. It's getting in and out. All right. Let's see. Moriarty on the motion B.
Yes.
Hisson, motion B. That's a yes. Codeheimer, motion B.
No.
No. Conyers, motion B.
Yes.
Decker, motion B. No. Motion passes 3-2.
Thank you.
What are my reasons, commissioners?
They were included in the motion. It's a unique condition.
Awesome, thank you.
You.
All right, moving on to agenda item number 6. CV-20-06-014, 689 North High Street. This application is to install new exterior illuminated wall sign measuring 3 foot 6 inches by 2 foot 6 inches, which is approximately 8.75 square feet per the submitted documentation, as well as install a new exterior illuminated projecting sign measuring 2 feet 5 inches by 15 feet 10 inches, which is approximately 38 square feet per the submitted documentation. Signs are to be lit with gooseneck lights and have a blue gold color scheme per the Short North Design guidelines. Pedestrian oriented signage is preferred, with projecting signs being the first preference and wall signs being the second preference. Auto-oriented signage is generally not appropriate for the pedestrian-oriented district. Signage should not obscure any architectural elements. The installation of a sign must be reversible and cannot permanently alter or damage historic building materials. Lighting should be integrated into the design. The fixtures should be of commercial quality, materials, and constructions, but have a residential aesthetic in terms of design, color, and other visual qualities. The maximum allowable area for a wall sign that will be supported is 25 square feet. Staff does recommend approval with the condition that the wall sign be reduced to 25 square feet. I believe we have a representative from Day Night Sign Company here. Chair, I'll give this back to you so you can swear him in.
Thank you. Where is our representative? Is that Mr. Holtzberry? There you are. Please state your name.
Oliver Holtzberry.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you will give tonight is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Do you have anything to add to what staff has told us about your application?
Recently, I believe this is for Alexander's Jewelers, and they went in front of you guys, I believe, to redo their facade a little bit. So right now there's actually an awning there and above the doorway, and the awning is being removed, and it's basically going to be totally a level facade now. It's not going to have a little area where you walk into before you enter the building. So that allowed us to have a little bit bigger wall sign here. And we tried to keep the wall sign and the projecting sign consistent, where they each have a 1/2 inch bronze acrylic, and they each have the bronze gooseneck lighting that will all be the same. You know, with the wall sign being I believe right now it is 38 square feet. The copy on it is even a little smaller. It doesn't take up the entire area there, and it is within 80% of the facade area, which is a City of Columbus requirement. So we would certainly like to keep the wall sign the size it is right now. And those are my comments.
All right. What is exposed right now under the awning? Is that just a piece of wood? What's there?
Under the awning right now, it's just brick right now, I believe.
So this sign would be covering brick?
Yes, it would. And it actually, for the new build out there, it was designed to have that sign in that area.
But okay. Discussion.
I guess, why didn't we see this when this happened?
I don't think they had done any signage work up to that point. I think they were just at that point working on redoing the facade.
I think my opinion is I think it looks okay. I don't know what issues are with what we have in the actual guidelines.
My concern is not with how it looks because it fits nicely into the space, but the whole purpose of the guidelines is to restrain sign competition. So that everybody is saying, look at me, no, look at me with their signage, and it just grows exponentially as one sign competes with the next. And so I think that they look okay and fit nicely within the space, and Alexander's a long name, are a little beside the point as to what we need to do with signage. That's my opinion. Any other discussion?
This is, go ahead, Lisa.
In that regard, I mean, they're keeping Alexander's the same size. They're just making Jewelers same size as Alexander's, which is fine, I guess. So it's not clear to me if the storefront has been altered already or not.
It has not been yet, I believe, but I believe that they had plans passed to do so.
Okay, so it is, so the plans are passed and those plans show brick behind where it says Alexander. Is that right?
Yeah, and I think even in the building plans, it showed that where we have the sign now, I think it showed that area as just blank and just marked out for signage without any actual graphic details on it.
Okay.
Sounds like we have to go back and see what that is.
I know, I wish I could see the approved drawing.
There is a picture of the existing condition if you missed it.
No, I want to see the approved condition.
He's saying they're changing the facade. How does this all fit together?
Yeah, that's what I don't understand.
I get it. There you go.
Yeah, and what they're doing to the facade is basically just it's not going to go back as it does right now into there, and they're removing the awning. So there's not a whole lot changing. It's going to be pretty similar without that awning, and it's just where the windows are now. Everything is going to be level onto that, so the door in line with those windows.
Will the windows move back or the door move out?
The door will move out.
Got it.
So that, I want to see the details of how those things work together and a section through that from the building through the sign, through what separates the window wall, and then down into the bottom panel. I think we need to see all of that, quite frankly. So it's not just about signage now, it's about, I think, the whole detail of that storefront.
And I do have building plans from them on that. So I don't know if you guys would want me to throw this design into the actual building plans.
The issue is that the sign, we could approve the sign, but right now half of it's hanging in the air. So we need to know what it's attached to. Is that right, Jeff?
I don't think we can approve the sign because then they'll run with both things and slam them together and we have no idea what we're going to get. I think we should see, they need to bring those two things together so we can see that. And I think the only thing that we have to, you know, think about tonight is that the pedestrian sign.
The blade sign?
Yep.
Is the blade sign?
I don't know what the other commissioners think, but that's my opinion.
Well, is there any controversy about the blade sign?
I mean, this is Conyers. I don't necessarily have controversy. I guess what I'm trying to understand is clarity. Is the proposal 2 signs, or is the proposal A or B? You know, one or the other sign? Because I think that, you know, as we start to look at this, there is, you know, or probably has been, you know, moments probably of, you know, trying to reduce the quantity of number of signs that are assigned to a storefront.
It is for both signs. It's not a either or that we're trying to accomplish. It was both signs.
This is not a corner application either, and it's pretty unusual for us to give somebody 2 signs under those conditions, particularly when one of them is way oversized. But that's just me. Do we want to go ahead and approve the blade sign and continue the other one, or what?
This is Conyers again. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead, Aaron.
Somebody talk, please. Jamie, are you trying to say something?
I just said, somebody go.
Another Seinfeld moment.
I would just say that based on all these kind of things that are up in the air, and that it's not a corner condition, so they are asking for something different to have both signs. I think you need to see those plans as they were approved. The signage should be projected upon that drawing, like Mr. Holtzberry has said he can do, and so we continue it. And I think that's the best course of action tonight.
Have I a motion?
A motion to continue.
Who said that?
I did. Jeffrey.
Okay, Hinson moves to continue. Do I have a second?
Second, Conyers.
All right. For the discussion. Let's see, Mr. Hissom, your vote.
Yes.
Liesel?
Yes.
Sean?
Yes.
Decker, yes. Motion passes. So there we are. Thank you, sir.
Okay, so you guys just want me to submit the building plans for the wall sign and basically superimpose it on the building plans?
Yes, sir.
That section has to read, the section has to read with the sign in it.
Okay, gotcha.
Got it?
Yep.
So from the sill, sign, and then the top plate of the window all the way down.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. All right, will do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
5A.
Yep.
Or 5B.
Just so you know, the materials are noted as 8B because I had a bit of a typo. I apologize. So you're going on the agenda as 5B, but the actual materials are a different thing. And I'm so sorry, everybody, as well as to Urban Order for skipping you guys. things have been a little chaotic. This is 5B for 1029 Neal. This is the proposed demolition of an existing roughly 1900 2.5 story barn, and then for the building of a new 2-story frame garage per the submitted drawings. A site visit was conducted by Commissioners Conyers and Kothemeyer and HPO staff on February 14th, 2020. The circa 1900 building is a significant contributing structure. While there is some deterioration that exists and some inappropriate repairs have been made, the building does not appear to be beyond repair. The commissioners can also only take cost into account when we're dealing with the appeal of a denied application. Staff recommends approval with condition. Staff does report repair and renovation rather than demolition of this carriage house. But if demolition is approved at this hearing or a future hearing, staff does recommend an abbreviated HABs report is completed to include photo documentation, measure drawing prior to demolition. And we already have our applicant sworn in. So Chair, I'm going to hand it back to you for discussion.
Kim, we also have the owner, Jason Ross, on the call too.
Sure. Mr. Ross, where are you? There you are. Please raise your hand. You swear, raise your hand in a swearing position. There you go. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give tonight is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay. Before we discuss this, I just want to point out that ever since I've been on the commission, people have been telling me that we cannot consider things like cost until there has been a denial. 3116.14 says exactly the opposite to that. It talks about how bad it is to tear down buildings and so forth and what needs to be included in an application. And then it says the does guided in its decision thereon by balancing the historic, architectural, and cultural value of the structure or feature and the purposes of this chapter, preserve historic structures, and the chapter pertinent to the subject property against applicant's proof of any unusual and compelling circumstances or substantial economic hardship in retaining the structure or architectural feature and the merit of the replacement project. So, cost, insofar as it affects substantial economic hardship or unusual compelling circumstances, is baked into our consideration. And I think we all agree that this is a contributing building and that it could be saved, because I think the applicant has given us evidence of what that would cost. Is that correct?
Well, of course, anything could be saved. So
right. It's so, and it is a contributing structure, and nobody disagrees with that, right?
Correct.
So, applicant, what have you to say in addition to what staff has said, or did you just do that?
So, I mean, you know, Steve and I, and we've worked on probably 1,000 historic buildings in the course of our careers, and it's so we don't take this lightly. I mean, we certainly appreciate the gravity of a demolition in a historic neighborhood, and we certainly don't endorse that unless we think it's really necessary. Jason is the second owner we've worked with on this property. The first owners tried to renovate it, but it's the building is in such bad shape that they abandoned that. Jason wanted to fix that as well, and now after structural reports and estimates from contractors, it's just cost prohibitive to kind of save it and turn it around. Right now, there's no foundation there. The studs have been rotted off. The floor joists have been replaced, and they're not sized properly. So the roof is understructured, and there's also a garage immediately to the north of it that was built about a foot away, which I think has also aided in deteriorating this building. So this building has been falling apart slowly for probably the past 50 or 60 years. So we've kind of gotten to this point through no fault of this owner or even the previous owner, but just collectively. So in our head, we're like, if we had to replace the foundation, replace floor joists, replace all the studs, replace all the siding, replace the entire roof structure, what is actually left of the original building that we're saving? So what we're proposing then is try to recreate the feeling of that barn structure, so that we think that's significant in itself, and into a different footprint on the site. So.
Initial question, you submitted a couple proposals by Epic Construction. Is that correct? And the first one was for a new build at around $211,000. And then the second one was to accomplish basically the same thing by restoring the existing building, shoring up the foundation and all of the structural damage. And that's around $260,000. Did I read all that right?
Correct. So it's about almost a $50,000 difference.
Right. And the amount of functionality, of course, you're going to be a little more functional building from scratch, but this is an historic neighborhood. So it's around a 25% premium to have a carriage house and save the building, right?
Yes, but as Dean was saying, how much of the building are we saving? And the other, I think that we discussed whenever we were here last time, was what was approved by the Village Commission to alter this building included a big dormer on the alley side, so it's even taking away more of what exists there now.
Discussion.
And Jack, maybe the commissioners who did the site visit, maybe they can start the discussion and kind of maybe talk about what they saw when they did the site visit.
I was planning on doing that before I forgot what I was doing. Sean, what did you say?
You're a brilliant man. So.
No problem. This is Conyers. So I would agree in terms of the severity. Obviously, that particular project is definitely a contributing structure. I think we all agree. I think it's handsome from that standpoint. But at the same time, I think what we were questioning is how much of the structure is going to be retained in its character. And so once we started from, let's just say, for instance, the top down. So a lot of those images start to really illustrate, the main ridge line, and the ridge line itself, being jeopardized by, that beam in its tie back actually missing. And the only way to replace that would actually be to tear the roof off. So we're going to be doing work from top down. And then what we did is we kind of went back and we looked at the foundation conditions as well. And it seems like we were going to be, working from the bottom up. So in the end, I think all of us were really questioning, or at least I know I was trying to question or trying to understand how much of the condition is going to be saved once the siding is removed, once the majority of the roof structure is replaced, once majority of the siding is replaced, once the foundation conditions is, additional excavation is done in order to shore it up. So that's where it started to lean towards what can we do to provide or at least replicate, the condition that is, I think, the contributing condition.
May I ask a follow-up? We're mainly concerned with the exterior shell of the structure. How much of the siding are you talking about needing to be replaced?
We'd probably end up replacing 100% of it by the time we straighten things up, put new studs in. There's been siding that's been cut in and patched in. So so that it'd be very difficult to kind of tooth that in with new siding, and especially when we raise it and level it, it's going to be kind of it's going to necessitate probably taking all the siding off. And I don't think we'd be able to save that siding. I think it's going to deteriorate once we take it off.
I think you can see from some of the that there has been patching of like T111. There's missing pieces.
So Sean, would you agree that we're really talking about preserving a patched up shell, structural shell?
That is correct.
By the time we're done.
That is correct. In order for it to be properly done, and I think that that's where, you know, it's just, I don't think that the commission would want, I should say, a secondary or tertiary, you know, repair to be completed, because we've seen, you know, 2 to 3 repairs already in terms of the fire that is gone, and then obviously it looks like there was some roof, you know, structural elements that were slightly changed or altered, which we couldn't really kind of put our finger on when we were reviewing it. So I think in order for it to properly be done, which I'm hopeful with this team, it's going to be that, but I think that it's going to be more of a severe renovation in terms of, you know, to mitigate all of the concerns that were evaluated.
By secondary or tertiary repairs, do you mean half-baked?
That is correct. That is correct.
Thank you.
It's just more of a surface treatment versus repairing it correctly so it stands for, you know, another 100 years.
Discussion. Further, anybody else have a viewpoint on this?
Well, I visited Sean and staff. This is Coatheimer. I mean, in my opinion, a 25%, you know, for preserving a historic structure doesn't seem totally out of line to me. I mean, at the current moment, the structure is it's successfully serving its purpose as a garage. The owner parks their vehicles in it, and it's not falling apart. And it hasn't, and their vehicles seem to be safe in there. I think it seems to me, based on the photos and having visited, that with the right amount of care, that you could preserve quite a bit of that siding. And I think the old siding is sort of important to the character, and cladding it in that will, you know, add to the character of the alley there. Obviously, there's been, you know, repairs and improvements done over time. I don't know, like, there's like the second floor loft is obviously newer. I don't know exactly what year that was done, if that was pre-commission or another time, but I would think that those were done off of engineered drawings, and it was determined that that was a safe alteration.
Lisa, actually, if you read the...
Hang on, Dean.
Okay.
Let Lisa finish, and then we'll go to you.
So I don't know. It seems like it's been, especially after fire, that there's been significant work done that was probably permitted and deemed to be structurally appropriate. So I feel like that should be taken into consideration. You know, someone seemed to think it was okay.
To you, and also, could you? I'm sort of curious, you know, what the mix and match situation is, if part of the siding proves usable and part not.
There's also, I mean, there's a building a foot away. You could use new siding on the side that's a foot from the other garage, where you wouldn't see it. That gives you, you know, it can be brand new.
You wanted to say something.
Oh, yeah, I just want to call reference to the structural engineer's report. And if I think, and I think Sean could back us up on this, but I think any work that was done in that garage after the fire was not permitted, and it's certainly not up to code. It's the way that the second floor joists are just kind of hung in there, and there's cables holding the roof together, and so nothing code, and it's like says it's kind of precarious according to the engineer's report. And once we touch it, we need to bring everything up to code, which means foundations, new walls, new floor structures, taking off the roof. I mean, so it gets pretty extensive in terms of that.
And the other thing that I want to make sure, the floor joists were replaced after the fire. There was always a second floor in this, so that's not new just to make a second floor.
Commissioners, I'd like to remind you of our time. We have half an hour left, and we still have quite a few more applications to get through.
Right. Any other discussion? I'll go ahead. Jump in, someone. I still think this is fairly simple. That is, on its face, I do not think a 25% premium to keep an historic building is unreasonable. And I agree with Lisa on that. But I do have a real big question that has to enter into this balance somewhere. What we're going to have after an historic structure after we try to fix it. And if it's a bunch of siding on essentially a new or half new superstructure, that's something that also fits in here into the balance. And I don't know what the answer is, but that seems to me to be the issue. Mr. Hissam, you look like you want to say something.
I'm sort of torn because I mean that upcharge 25% when you put an apartment on top of it. I mean, the value of that house and what he can get out of it, he's gonna return that in no. But at the same time, when you do all that work and then you have, one side of it that needs to be painted and taken care of constantly, and then other three sides that are deteriorating or being maintained at another schedule. I think that if we do this, he's going to have to use the high materials that he can to replace what he's replacing. So whether that's, was that a slate roof? I couldn't tell whether it was a slate roof or not.
No, just an asphalt roof.
Asphalt roof. So I think we need to step up the materials if in fact we're going to let him go down that alley.
Go down the demolition alley. What was the materials for the siding on the replacement proposal?
We wanted to match or be similar to what's there now. So it was similar profiles. I think we had the vertical kind of siding that's on the existing garage. So again, we wanted to kind of recreate that. So yeah, you could see it right there. And then we would do, I'm sorry.
I understood that, but it would be, what would it be composed of? Wood, hardy plank,
and then
burl?
A hardy or a boral or some other, maybe even a tongue and groove product similar to what's there now. We'd like to, if the commission thinks it's appropriate, we would like to be similar to that structure. So again, the contributing mass and size, fenestration would be kind of still there, once we rebuild it. Yeah, thanks for highlighting.
Any other discussion? Are we seeking approval of both the plans for the replacement project and the demolition?
Yes, when the commission looks at a demolition, they want to know what's going in place. Right now, it's a conceptual, so we'd be happy to bring a more fully fleshed out version of that back because I know you're limited on time. So
right. What do you want to do? Vote on the demolition today? Is there any other material we can use to guide our? I think the applicant has been in front of us several times trying to figure out which way to go. And we need to get him an answer one of these days.
I have a question, Moriarty. Is it possible to replace the historic structure with a new structure, but using historic materials? So not hardy plank, but wood siding?
we could, but I think it's the same reason that the commission now approves clad windows instead of wood windows or hardy in the first place, because the wood we get now is not going to hold up. But I think a product like Boral, which has certainly more dimension and it's more durable, would be appropriate, and we could get historic profiles in that.
I do want to point out that Epic and Steve and Dean did my edition, and they did it in Boral. So one, I think Epic is probably giving us something close to the truth in their estimate, which is not always the case. When we see proposals like for work that the applicant really doesn't want to do. Sean, and Jeff, you can contradict me on that because you know your construction better than I do. But yeah, Jeff.
I said I agree with you on that.
Yeah.
I will just jump in and say you should make that a condition of anything right now, that it would be Boral or better with historic profiles. But I do encourage you to move on this application in some form. Thanks.
Do we have a motion on the demolition? I think we have enough about what the replacement project will look like. I don't think we need to have a fully developed one to vote on the demo. We've done that before.
Move to, I'll go ahead and do a motion. This is Conyers. I move to approve the demolition, giving consideration to the application or the proposed substitution or replacement, given the conditions are going to be too severe, or the amount of improvements is going to be too severe that it would start to jeopardize, or at least we wouldn't be able to maintain the character that is contributing.
All right, do you want to put a condition on there that the replacement project include Boral siding?
I would say that the replacement project should be brought back once those final details are confirmed.
All right, do we have a second? Is that you, Jeff?
Yep, second.
Further discussion? All right, here we go. Sean, it's your motion. What's your vote?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Aaron? Will we give you time to think? Okay, that's a yes. Liesel?
No.
Oh, gee. I've been busy running the meeting. I have to vote yes. I think that we just aren't going to have enough left. That we're really going to end up replicating the existing structure we go. So we might as well do it from the ground up. So that would be 4-1. Motion passes. Then what we need a motion to continue the remainder. Well, I guess the rest of it is a conceptual, right?
Yeah, we'll bring it in with an actual application.
As far as this commissioner is concerned, I do agree with Jamie that we need to have ultra high quality and materials on the new proposal.
Oh, absolutely.
You may end up spending part of the money you saved upgrading grading those things.
That's great. All right. Well, thank you guys. We appreciate it. We know it's difficult.
All right. Let's move along. Next.
All righty.
Jack.
Item number 7.
Excuse me. I just want to say that Commissioner Hissam is his hard stop is 8 o'clock. I have another commitment, so I don't know what the meeting, but
Well, we'll still have a quorum. Let's go.
Yes, we'll reevaluate when it gets closer to 8.
When we get closer to 8, we're going to have to do something because we're going to start losing people. Next.
All right. Item number 7, VV-20-06-015, 936 Highland Street. This is for the replacement of original textured aluminum siding for a single unit with new James Hardie fiber cement siding and trim. This also includes the soffit, fascia, gutters, and downspout that are also going to be replaced. The new siding will be evening blue with an Arctic white trim, and this does include the replacement of existing windows with Marvin Ultimate Clad Next Generation double hung windows, full frame replacement, and ebony. These are on the approved windows list, so staff is okay with them. Now, the structure was built in 1985, and 936 Highland is part of connected condominiums where all of their sidings match. The applicant informed staff that the other condo owners are not interested in replacing their siding at this time. Window replacements were chosen from the approved list. Staff recommends approval with the condition that if you need to separate it, approve the windows, and that the siding matches the remainder of the structure and the applicant coordinate with the other units to match the existing siding, and if not possible, repair in like kind. I believe we should have Dan Gessler here. Chair, I will hand this back over to you.
Mr. Gessler, are you in one of these squares in front of me somewhere? Hello? Applicant? We have no applicant. Is this something we can move forward with?
We can either move forward with it or we can continue it. I'm going to leave that up to the commission. If we
we're running out of
time.
We're running out of time. Can I have a motion to continue?
So move.
continue.
We have a motion by, I think, Kodheimer and a second by Hissam. Further discussion, all in favor, that would be Aaron. Aaron, yes? No, maybe? Commissioner Hissam.
Yes.
Commissioner Kodheimer.
Yes.
Commissioner Conyers.
Yes.
Commissioner Moriarty. Can't hear you.
Yes.
Cool. Decker, yes. Continued. Next.
Okay. Our next application is number 8 VV-20-06-016. This is 301 West 3rd Avenue, which is the addition onto an existing rear single-story kitchen per the submitted documentation. The removal of an existing rear chimney. The proposed addition would have hard shingle siding and hardy trim with wainscot paneling. Windows would be Pella impervious single hung. Additions should be lower than the original roof height and narrower than the historic structure. Historic materials should be repaired rather than replaced. Chimneys are considered contributing features to residential structures. And the Pella impervia windows are typically only approved as a casement windows replacement. A different window from the approved windows list should be utilized. I did list the applicable standards, which include the distinguishing characteristics of the property should not be destroyed. The deteriorated architectural features should, and whenever possible, a new addition or alteration shall be accomplished so that its future removal will not impair the essential form or function and form or integrity of the structure. Staff does recommend approval, as I noted with the windows, and then that the rear is kept and maintained. I believe we should have Tom Shepaka and then the homeowner. Chair, I will hand it back over to you to get them sworn in.
All right, where are you folks? Speak up so you'll light up.
Tom Shepaka on phone.
Okay, anyone else?
We need to have them on video for sworn testimony that went out in the meeting materials.
Theoretically, the things that allow me to swear applicants require that it be on video. So, but
The homeowner, I believe, is on video.
who is?
Johnson Lau, I believe.
Where are you, buddy? Wave or do something so you show up.
Not on video.
Hello. Hello, can you hear me?
Mr. Lau, we can hear you. We cannot see you.
Oh gosh, I'm waving like a maniac here.
No, there's just no picture, sir.
Your video is also breaking, your audio is also breaking up, Mr. Lau. I'm going to point out this is directly behind my house, so I'm going to have to abstain. And since I'm the only officer of the commission, I will appoint Mr. Hissam as Vice Chair Pro Tem. There's Mr. Lau. Please raise your hand.
Hey, Jack.
Yeah.
Jack, unfortunately, I'm going to have to leave, so I don't know whether I'm going to be able to see this one through.
Mr. Conyers, there you are. You're running this show, but before that, before I leave, I'm going to swear Mr. Lau. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you will give this evening is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Yes. Please carry on, Mr. Conyers, sir.
We can't. Don't we have to have his visual? I don't see him.
Can't see me? I'm waving.
We do have Mr. Lau's video. I can see it.
I'm waving like a maniac.
That's perfect.
He's
Okay,
sworn.
we can
I
go ahead
think
and
we
move
only
forward.
need his visual to swear him.
Okay, we can go ahead and move forward. So with that being the case, though, given that the swearing, Mr. Lau is the only, he's the only one that can present, basically. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Lau. Is there anything that you want to add?
Yeah, so we actually had an approved plan for a larger scope of work. And this is basically well, in essence, a reduction on what we had proposed and was approved before. Previously, addition where the even on the first floor was more into the backyard, and on one of the sides there was a bay window that extended beyond the existing or the previous foundation. What we're doing now is basically going up on the existing foundation, but indenting a little bit inside so that the addition on the second floor is subsequent to the existing structure. So it's indented on the side and is also all the way to the back. It doesn't go above the existing bathroom that's downstairs. We're hoping that we can get the approval on this and we can actually proceed this build out.
Thank you, sir. Commissioners, open up for comment.
This is much different than all the meetings we went through, so I'm going to listen to other comments first.
Okay. Lisa or Aaron?
Erin did note in the chat that she's having a significant delay with her audio visual.
There are actually a whole bunch of these. There are a whole bunch of these little caution signs going up on all the speakers that there's low bandwidth and the connections are poor.
I mean, nothing sticks out to me like enormously on this other than the removal of the tree. I have it bothers me quite a bit when interior features affect the exterior of the house. And I think that's something that needs to be amended on this. I'm also not quite understanding the wainscoting as part of the design.
The I don't know if I may clarify. So I mean, we
Go ahead, Mr. Lau, you can clarify.
I mean, we can keep any feature that exists and pick the approved window list. The chimney, my understanding is it's an interior element and will not be seen, or I mean trying to understand the concern. I want to make sure we address it. We're not trying to like make this not from the original style.
Mr. Conyers, I'm just going to interject that we need to get through the commissioners before we go back to the owner. It becomes more crosstalk. Thank you.
Understood, Jamie. Thank you, sir. Aaron, do you have any comments?
No, I'm okay.
Jeffrey, do you have any comments to add?
I'm okay if everyone else is.
I wanted to add one more thing. This is Codeheimer. Before, when we looked at additions to this house, there was a lot of back and forth about having the addition. This is a super modest house, and it's pretty small. It's kind of long and skinny, and having the addition not be not overtake whether it's the ornamentation or the size of it. And I think that the extra detail, I guess, on the back with the shingles sort of dominates the front of the house a bit.
I would agree.
And I also...
What do you think if it was board and batten? Liesl.
I just think it should be one material. And then also the small window where I'm assuming the kitchen counter is not appropriate.
So I'm going to offer a couple comments too as well. One is I think that the first floor, as far as the addition, there's two components. One is the addition is kind of in the same plane of the existing home. And so I'm just trying to understand new materials versus existing materials and how that works out in the end in terms of that transition. When we work ourselves back to the rear porch, the foundation of the rear porch actually continues, and you can see that in more so the east elevation sheet versus it stopping at the first floor, and then the porch itself reads as a separate element by pushing itself. So if you kind of extend to maybe the south elevation, which is the next sheet, you'll be able to see that condition of the porch basically pulling itself, plan right past to basically, find some efficiencies in marrying up to the existing footprint. But it just doesn't seem that that's appropriate in terms of massing wise and actually, articulating the porch related to the column, etc. So those are just some high level observations. I would agree with the commissioners. So Mr. Lau, would you want a motion to continue to maybe take consideration to some of these comments and come back before us again? Or would you want us to?
No, actually, we go horizontal or batten. I mean, we just give us the guidance. We'll do it. We would like to vote and hopefully get this smaller. Well, I mean, we're trying to do a smaller scale addition than the last time, so we're hoping that this is actually even more preferable for the and the neighborhood than we had attempted to before. Really like to.
What about the chimney?
So you basically would like to have the chimney still on the roof. About the inside.
I mean, we're not going to see the inside, but
no, it don't see the inside, right?
We'll I have to talk to the office. So if you do it, just leave the.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Point of order. You need to agree to something or continue it, but you need to say, yes, we will maintain the chimney, and that's how we go forward. To clarify.
All right. Yes. Let's maintain the chimney. Yes.
So Mr. Lau, given the comments that was received today, it's probably in the best interest to continue. That would be moving forward because those revisions would have to be incorporated anyhow. And then we would be able to come back to and review this next month with those revisions incorporated and those comments.
I'm sorry, is it possible? At least in California, I actually flew out here and realized the meeting wasn't in person, but is it possible that we can get the changes to staff or checking to make sure that it's verified with all the requirements or the suggestions that's requested now, and that we maintain the chimney, go to horizontal siding or in batten, and I forgot what other concerns there were.
I think the bathroom window is inappropriate.
I guess I'm not going to speak for the entire commission. I'm not going to speak for the entire commission. Mr. Lau, I'm sorry. I'm not going to speak for the entire commission, but I guess given the understanding of the number of changes or comments that have been offered, it seems like it's in the best interest to go ahead and I guess I should say continue the application. So then that way you have the opportunity to make those updates and revisions and then come back to the commission accordingly. Is that an acceptable solution, sir? Unfortunately, Mr. Lau, you broke up you're breaking up really heavily, sir. I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry. So, I mean, is there a way we can understand like a exhaustive list of concerns that may derail this from getting approved next time, so we can get it all fixed this time? If you guys can't vote on it, because we would do all the stuff you will ask, but I would hopefully we don't continue and then next week there's some additional concerns and then it's not in the plan and then we have to continue again. It took a long time last time. I'm trying to see if there's a way to.
Understood. So I guess I think that I heard most of it, and I'm going to reiterate just really quickly. I think that what you're asking for is for us to give you a list of items or a list of the comments, so then that way you can take them into consideration, and then we would go ahead and continue, and you would come back with that list completed. So if you're saying that you would love a list, then we need to provide you a list, and I'm sure that we can do that. Lisa, do you want to go first?
I would say that we have covered it in the meeting, and that the write-up coming from the minutes will sufficiently take care of that.
That's perfect. Thank you, Jamie. Thank you for the support. Mr. Lau, the information will be documented and formally given to you, so then that way you guys can have that information as you incorporate those changes into the revisions for next month's submission. So with that, is there a motion to continue?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I can second. This is Moriarty.
Thank you, Aaron.
Hi, Jeffrey. I'm going to check out after this.
Jeffrey is an aye. Aaron?
Yes, it is.
Lisa?
Aye.
Conyers? Aye. The motion is continued. Thanks, Jeffrey, for hanging in there.
Thanks, you guys. Bye.
Thank you, sir.
All right, I'm back.
Thank you,
Decker.
Mr. Lau. Thank you, Mr. Lau. We truly appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Conyers, I'm back. Jamie, what are you about to say?
I just want to, let's have everybody get on the same page. It is now official time. We can do another half hour. I don't know how much longer we could do after that. So this has all been in the meeting materials. This is obviously dealing with a significant backlog of commission cases, but we have to take into account that we can't just run this meeting indefinitely. So if there's some kind of
If we can get in another half hour, that would be great. With 4 commissioners, it takes 3 now to pass anything. I would point out we've got election of officers on the agenda, and I would like an understanding that we can move that to the business meeting now that we can get full attendance.
You can do that at the business meeting.
Can?
Can. In the affirmative, sir.
Let's do that. All right? Do I have any objection?
No.
No objections.
All right.
No
That's
objection.
done. Next case.
Right. Number 9, this is VV-20-06-017, 1231 Highland Street. This application is for the proposal of landscaping, which includes trees, shrubs, and other plantings per the submitted documentation, and the installation of the dog-eared fence and gates in the backyard per the submitted plans. Applicable city code to keep in mind, 3116.13 standards for site improvement include landscaping, parking, utility service areas, walkways, and similar improvements should be compatible to each other and to the subject building or structure, as well as the adjacent properties. Fences of wrought iron, stone, and wood are encouraged. We don't approve chain link fence. Staff does recommend approval as submitted. And I did see Ingrid Navarro here, so Chair, you would swear her in, please.
Yes, I saw her here too. Where is she? There you are. Raise your hand. Do you swear or affirm testimony you will give Ms. Navarro tonight is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yeah.
All right. Do you have anything to add to staff's presentation? All right. Any discussion? Anybody have any issues with anything here?
My question was, is there any particular issue why this wasn't staff approved?
Second that.
Yeah, I mean, that's not. Let's do it quickly.
Hold on. If I'm
concerned I'm missing something.
When something is so significant of a design, that's why this was sent to the commission. But I will remind you that based in city code, staff can send any case that they're questionable about to the commission for review. There's no requirement for staff approve something that they aren't comfortable with, that there's some kind of question there that puts it somewhere else. So good question, but I wanted to clarify that and so we could keep moving.
Yeah, let's avoid side issues.
I wanted to understand if there was something questionable that staff found, and it sounds like there isn't. I don't think there's anything questionable, so I'm okay with it.
Anybody else? Sean?
Okay.
Aaron?
No comments. No, I'm fine. I'm going to lean on Lisa from this standpoint. So yes, I'm good.
Me too. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve as submitted.
Okay, that's Codeheimer. Is that a second from Mr. Conyers?
That is correct.
All right, any further discussion? All in favor? Let's see. Codeheimer.
Aye.
Moriarty.
Aye.
Conyers.
Aye.
Decker. Aye. Passes. There you go. Thank you for your patience, Ms. Navarro.
Thank you. Have a good night. Bye-bye.
All right, you too. Next.
Item number 10, VV-20-06-018, 1027 Neal Avenue. This application is for replacing existing wood lap siding on a rear elevation with Boral true exterior lap siding of similar style. Paint the siding to match the existing color scheme and remove vinyl siding on the garage and to install Boral true exterior siding in the same manner to replace the existing siding. Staff had approved the replacement of the siding in like kind as part of a March COA. The additions wood siding was part of the original approval and is being replaced due to improper installation, which resulted in water damage. Staff recommends approval with the condition that the Boral siding is in lap style with exposure matching the existing siding. I am not sure if the applicant homeowner are here. The homeowner is Pete Schuler. Chair, I will hand it back to you.
Applicant, homeowner, anybody else? Are you here? Wave, please. There you go. Please state your name.
Josh Matzinger.
Do you swear from the testimony you will give tonight the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Very well. Do you have anything to add?
No, just yes, homeowner wanted to point out that the siding that is on the addition is approximately 14 years old. So the reason for the change to the Boral is to have something that's going to last that they're not going to have to replace again.
This is wood that's on there now?
Correct. Pine lap, I believe.
Right. Do we have a motion to approve as submitted? Well, any other discussion, or can we move right to a motion to approve as submitted with the proviso that the new material have the same dimensions and appearance as what was previously approved in wood?
So moved.
We have a second.
Second. From Moriarty.
Codeheimer was first to second. Any other discussion necessary? All right. Codeheimer, yay or nay?
Yay.
Moriarty.
Yes.
Conyers.
Yes.
Decker, yes. Motion passes. You're good to go. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Yep. Have a good evening.
Next.
All right, number 11, VV-20-06-19. This is at 25 West Hubbard Avenue. This is a conceptual review for the proposed temporary mural location. The mural would be 10 by 10 and it would be placed on the west side of the building on an infilled window per the submitted documentation. The proposed mural fronts a side street and does not cover any significant architectural features. It's over the blocked-in window opening. The proposed size appears appropriate for the particular building. I believe Caitlin Dunn is still on, and thank you for waiting this long, Caitlin. I will hand it back to you, Chair.
Ms. Dunn, you're already sworn. Anybody have any comments or objections to this? Looks fine to me. Anybody else?
No objections.
Aaron, look good to you?
No, good. Yep, looks good.
Liesel?
Looks good.
There you go. Would you like this to be more critical or just say yes?
That's great.
Okay.
I'm the one after though, so I'm the next.
Next. Next project.
Number 12 is VV-20-06-020. This is 53 West Russell Street. It's another conceptual review for a proposed temporary mural location approximately 45 by 40 feet on the second story of a building. The temporary mural will be placed on the east side of the building per the submitted documentation. The proposed mural, is located on a modern parking structure fronting a side street, while half a block from High Street. It does not infringe on the residential neighborhood. The proposed size appears to be appropriate for this particular building. Chair, back to you.
A couple quick questions. Are we talking for these murals about direct painting on building materials, or are these the plastic temporary things that we've been using in the past?
Is that for me?
That's for you, Kale.
That would be permanent. It would be a permanent mural. So paint on the building.
Okay, and what are we painting?
Well, we would come back to the commission once we went through a community informed process for that.
Bad question. What are we painting on? What is the material that we're going to be covering up?
It is it's cement, and you actually conceptually approved the wall that's kind of perpendicular to that. So we are just kind of expanding that area and getting your thoughts on having that full kind of L shape be a permanent mural.
So this is poured cement.
Yes, it's like poured cement. I believe it's cinder block, but I can confirm that for you.
I can't see, but is this the side of a garage, or what is it?
It is the very top of the Joseph garage.
Got it. Okay, so this is a new build.
Yeah.
All right. Any discussion? I don't think we need to be painting over brick, but if it's not brick, I don't see an issue. Anybody?
Okay.
No discussion if it's the material that she's mentioning.
This is a conceptual, right?
We'll be back.
Very good. Any other feedback? I'm good with it too, as long as we aren't painting brick, which is a sin against humanity. All right. Very good. Next case. Thank you. Who's next?
Number 13, VV-20-06-021, 1210 Highland Avenue. This is the conceptual review to enclose an existing rear porch, modify existing windows into French doors with the transom per the drawings, add a rear porch over the rear entry. Porch would include a second-story walkout with a rail. The second story would be modified, removing the existing windows and replacing with 2 windows and a door, lights to border door on the first and second stories. The enclosure of the existing porch and new addition as proposed would affect architectural characteristics typical of structures in the district. City Code 3116.11 standards for alteration to keep in mind. The distinguishing characteristics of the property should not be destroyed. The removal or alteration of any historic materials or distinctive architectural features shall be avoided whenever possible. Distinctive stylistic features and examples of craftsmanship that characterize a property shall be treated with sensitivity. Whenever possible, a new addition or alteration shall be accomplished so that its future removal will not impair the essential form and integrity of the structure. In passing upon appropriateness, the Commission shall consider, in addition to other pertinent factor, the architectural characteristics typical of a structure in the district or listed property, the historical or architectural value and significance, architectural style, general design, arrangement, texture, material, and color of the architectural feature involved in its relation to the architectural features of other contributing properties in the immediate neighborhood. Is Amy Lauerhouse or Garrett McGuire here? And I will
see Amy's name. Where is her image? Where is your image so I can swear you in?
Here. When we started the meeting, I was able to show my video, and now all of a sudden I can't display my video. I don't know what changed.
There is a stop my video button at the bottom of your screen. If you mouse over it, it's the second from the left. Make sure that that is not on.
Yeah, it says that we cannot display your video. Make sure your camera is shared in your browser. Um,
Well, this is a conceptual, so I don't know if we need your sworn testimony.
I would actually like it to be the final, if that's okay. I can't get my.
Is this the conceptual on the agenda?
This is listed as a conceptual on the agenda. I believe this is the first time that we're seeing this as well.
Yes, that's correct.
I don't think we can do it as a final without a video and sworn testimony, but I think we can ask questions and get a feedback now. Do you agree, Jamie? That's the way to go?
I do, sir. I do.
That's, it's the keeper of the video rules.
I think I just got video. Hold on one second.
I'm still going to say that we should be talking about this conceptually. That's how we noticed it. That's how we.
That's how the public has noticed what we're about to do. Oh, there's Amy. She's moved. She's got a new box. We see you. Okay, raise your hand, Miss Larhouse. Raise your hand.
Hold on.
Just raise your hand. He can see you. Just raise your hand.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give this evening is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay. We have to move right along because we're running out of time. Do you have anything to add to what staff has said about this?
I just wanted to add that that back addition is not original. And so our feeling is we're trying to improve what's there and make it more coherent and aesthetically pleasing with the rest of the house. And so the porch that we're adding on is just a small back entry porch, and it will be the railing details will match the front porch as well as the colors.
Commissioner comment? Anybody?
Sorry, is this okay, so it's an addition on the addition. Is that right?
So the void there that is now the back porch, if you look at the back photo, we are enclosing into finished space. And then we're putting a small entry porch behind that.
Okay. That's not enclosed.
Right, it's just covered. Yep, it's just a covered porch, and the columns and the balusters, all the details and colors will match the front porch. There you can see on the site plan where the void is now that will be enclosed, and then the entry porch behind that.
Is there an elevation drawing?
Yes, there is a drawing. The elevation drawing is, I think, at the end of my packet.
Lisa, it's all in there.
Yep.
You need to.
The link doesn't work. I don't have a link to this packet, so.
There we go. All right. I think that since nobody else is commenting right now, I will point out that the addition that we're altering is not all that well done.
Right.
So I don't have a problem with the general idea. The one thing I would point out is it's usually not all that good an idea to replicate the exact details on a front porch on the rear, because usually there's a proportionality where the grand stuff and the weighty stuff is on the front, and then what is on the rear is lighter and simpler. So
okay.
I think you could do the same thing, but with less, with different posts, and maybe a less ornate set of. You don't necessarily need turn posts on your upper fence.
Yeah, we'd be more than happy to do just a straight baluster with the posts out front are fluted, and we'd be happy to do a flat post and a flat, just a simple square baluster. to simplify the back porch as compared to the front one.
Sean and Aaron, what do you think?
This is Codeheimer. I'll just add, I agree that I don't have a problem with the overall idea of doing this addition, but I think it's gonna need a couple rounds, definitely one round of massaging. There's certain things like the window in the upper left does not line up with the windows on the house. There's just general sort of spacing of things that doesn't look proportional, and that doors look a bit funny, and the posts for the railing, or I think that's what they are. So it needs another round of going back and taking cues from the house and sort of checking things back with the original house.
I guess, is the issue with the fact that the lower level doors aren't centered in the porch? Or because the new windows are all centered over each other, which the current ones are actually.
Yeah, so the upper left windows look like they seem to be shorter than the ones on the far right.
No, they're equal.
Yeah,
the sill of the new windows on the left second floor equals the sill of the existing windows on the right.
Okay. Well, if that's true, then that's true. It doesn't look to be that way. I think that the door on the upper portion and the window seem kind of crowded and just visually generally unappealing. The posts on the porch, I think those are railing posts. I can't really tell, but I think those would be better to be metal railings than wooden railings.
For the lower part?
Yeah.
Okay.
You're not talking about the railing around the porch. You're talking about the steps, right?
The handrail or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Okay. Steps.
Yeah, and we're fine with that as well.
Okay.
Yeah, as far as the windows, she was just she has a nice backyard, and she was just trying to maximize the light, into that back space, and we were trying to replicate the size of the windows that are there.
All right, do we have any other commissioners still with us?
Yes, sir, I'm still here. This is Conyers. I would echo the comments provided by the commission, my fellow commissioners, just in terms of being able to simplify it. I would agree with Lisa in terms of, revising the handrails, looking at maybe a concrete stoop, and just being able to simplify it. But I would agree that this is kind of a better composition than what was completed before. But it's worthy of another round of review.
Aaron? You're on mute. Aaron, we can't hear you.
Sorry, that was my fault. I think generally we would ask for a dimension drawing, and so that might be something that you would also include.
Bingo, we think if they are taking good notes, they can come back for approval with a set of complete drawings next time.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. We have 6 minutes left according to my clock. What can we do?
Mr. Chair, I think we should at least hear the beginning or offer some preliminary feedback on the Kaufman development. We've had a lot of stuff on this, and it's been a long night, but I'd hate to have this continued yet again.
Is that the last thing on the agenda?
There's two more after that, but this is
oh, I see. Yeah, let's go to that.
See what we can do.
Who's here for Kaufman?
Mr. Chair, before we just, Mr. Chair, I would just like to say that if application 13 and 14 are not being heard, I think we should just make sure that we let them know that and what they're, before we get into the last application.
I'm ready to stay here all night.
are.
I'm ready to stay here all night, but I think staff is not, and we're going to have to continue those, right? We had a 2-hour limit. We're at 2.5 hours now.
That's correct. So I would say that I'm going to be continuing 15 and 16.
Do we have a motion to do so?
A motion to continue 15 and 16.
Second.
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Let the record
Tremendously
reflect.
sorry that we are not going to get to you tonight, but we will have you scheduled. And if we can offer any feedback in the interim, we will do so.
I'm very sorry too. This is a new system and we're moving as fast as we can with it. Thank you. All right. Who's here for Kaufman? Mr. Suter. Real good. Brian Suter. We have Dan Ayres.
Yes, sir.
We have Frank Sasso. Who else is here? Devin Carruthers, are you here with us?
I'm here.
Anybody? Oh, Brett Kaufman. You're up there in the corner. All right, everybody raise your hands. Brett Kaufman, Brian. Oh, Jessica. All right.
Might limit it to who's speaking.
You're going to have to identify yourselves when you talk, but Mr. Kaufman, Mr. Suter, Mr. Ayres, Mr. Carruthers, Mr. Sasso, and Jessica, with no last name on the screen, do you all swear or affirm that the testimony you're giving tonight is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. Yeah, I do.
Let the record reflect that all 6 witnesses have been sworn. Real quick, we don't need much of a presentation on this. We've seen it already, but staff, what do we have?
All right, this is the conceptual review for the demolition of a proposed portion of the banquet hall, new construction of a 7-story mixed-use building per the submitted drawings. I won't go into specifics because I trust you guys have seen this a couple times and you've read over the agenda, you know the basics of it. This application was conceptually reviewed in February and March of this year. Materials and textures have changed. There are 2 alternative options for change in color. The change in coloration and materiality are on all elevations, has been simplified. There's added contrasting areas of finery greenery. The roof line is at 77 feet as opposed to the original 89 feet. The lowest component of the 6th floor is 66 feet 8 inches. In regards to the colors is the silver colored brick, the body of the presentation preferred over the silver white brick, which is shown in the initial appendix. Staff does not recommend using vining plants such as ivy. They damage the materials that they typically climb up on and create future problems such as engulfing the entire structures. A little bit of city code to keep in mind, 3616.12, standards for new constructions, new structure, new reflecting contemporary designs while using the contemporary elements to relate to existing contributing properties in the area, as well as 311611, the point 11, the standards for alteration. Contemporary design for alteration to a property shall not be discouraged when alteration does not destroy any significant historical, architectural, or cultural material, and its design is compatible with size, scale, color, material, and character of the property, its environment, and surrounding contributing properties. Chair, back to you.
Very good. There are other items in the code that are relevant, like 311612I, generally a simple roof shape. It's preferred and where brick dominates in nearby structures, new construction shall be a brick. D, the proportion of openings, width and height of windows, doors, and entries shall be visible, compatible with adjacent contributing properties. And 12A, New construction structures should use contemporary design elements that relate to existing contributing property surrounding the new structure. Height, mass, width, and proportion affect a degree of compatibility there too. So who wants to speak for the applicant to see what we have to add? And please just concentrate briefly on what's changed because we're running out of time.
That's fine. I will start. I will keep my comments brief, although I had a 35-minute opening argument, so I will keep them to very shortly. Needless to say, I appreciate everybody being here. Thanks for extending the meeting for us. We really appreciate it. Obviously, we've been doing a lot of work on this over the course of the last couple of months. Just a couple of things to comment on real quick, and then I'll pass it off to Frank and or Dan to talk about a couple other items specifically.
This is Brian talking. Go ahead.
This is Brian. I'm sorry, Brian Suter. Just to set the context of it, obviously, we're in a vastly different place in terms of the socioeconomic standards of the world right now, as well as the economic standards of the world from when we saw you guys last 3 months ago. So that has obviously come into consideration as we're working on the building in terms of our underwriting and our expectations of what the world will exist once the building is finished. So just take that into consideration as we're thinking about it. Furthermore, I think I just want to point out that over the course of the last week, the Short North Arts District has become much more of an arts district with a significant amount of art being put up on barricades and throughout the neighborhood, as well as a couple of the other earlier applications to continue to add more murals and such to the overall context of the neighborhood. We continue to believe that architecture is art in a form, and would like to continue to push for buildings that aren't necessarily exactly like all the other buildings, having some unique contextual value to the architecture. Beyond that, just to get into some of the sort of the details of it, just to emphasize, we have worked to reduce the mass of the building on the western portion as it gets into the neighborhood. And again, for reference for other projects that are similar in scale and size in the neighborhood, the Hubbard Park project is 52 feet in the neighborhood. Pizzuti is at 53 feet at its lowest point. Yoga on High is 65, and the Castle building is 85 feet at its lowest point. And just a reminder here, our lowest point is at 56 feet, and the lowest level of that actually goes up to about 67 feet. And again, with our mansard roofs, the peak of the lowest roof is at 77 feet. So just again, to give some context generally in terms of where the other projects are within the neighborhood. There were a couple comments previously just in terms of what we're going to do with the IBW building, and I want to just touch quickly on those just so that people understand that we have started to consider those and understanding what the expectations are for the restoration of that building. So we anticipate to repainting trim, put on window repair, put in new windows as need be, restoring the building exterior to the previous condition, tuck pointing, and obviously repairing roofs and any kind of water damage that has occurred in the course of the last couple of years. So again, we have focus on that, but we will happily dig into that at much more length if the commission would like to see that. Again, and I will reiterate, we know that there's been some challenges in the past of the commission approving certain types of building materials, and then those building materials may or may not actually end up on the building. So we'd like to just say that we're perfectly and more than willing and happy to come back as things change or things potentially shift around to provide updates in terms of materiality and how things have shifted. So with that, I'll let Dan talk really quickly about some of the changes that we've made here in this versus the project that we submitted last month and also in March. Dan, go ahead and just start hitting on some of the key points.
Yeah, I think, thanks, Brian. This is Dan Ayres with MBBJ Architects. Just real quick, high level, what you guys are looking at here on the screen with the before and after. The materiality of the upper area is still looking at an aluminum panel, but has substantially changed color given our last meeting with you and listening to what you had to offer with the previous darker color. So there was also some comments about the wood paneling, which you see, which is the lighter brown on the previous design, was I think somebody had stated muddied up the facade. So we've simplified that, gone back to some of the original design that we had, and have really been concentrated more on the detailing of the brickwork at the base. and looking at making sure that our overall scale, the greenery is also in places that and we showed a rendering of a little bit more detail of how that greenery is working on the upper levels, and brought the overall lightness of the building, which I think is really having an impact on how the overall massing of the project. And here you can see the south side as we step down towards the neighborhood, as Brian had mentioned, with those heights, and getting it down to a more reasonable scale, which we believe matches a number of the other projects that have been built in the neighborhood. I'm going to keep it fairly short to that. You guys can see a lot of those changes that have come from this. We have provided a couple of options. So to Brian's point, we can, when we come back for approval with some input today on one of the two directions, would be great for input. I don't know if Frank, if you have any other that you want to add to the discussion.
No, I appreciate everyone sticking around and giving us feedback. We have, I think, said it really well. Since really for the past 3.5 years, every submittal, we've really tried to emphasize coming forward with something we think is architecturally significant that adds to the art and the architecture of the neighborhood. And it's gotten exceedingly more challenging in the current environment that we're in, but we think all the more important to stick with this. And we're sort of at an inflection point where we've you know, are really trying to hold true to something that we think really adds to the neighborhood and really contributes, and really are hoping to get some good, clear feedback tonight so that we can move this forward.
All right.
I'll add one other thing really quickly, and this was a comment previously, just with respect to some of the greenery that we're showing on a lot of the building. We've obviously reduced that down significantly. A lot of the spaces where you see greenery is now actually within common spaces or spaces that the landlord controls. So we have the ability to maintain and keep that up rather than having tenants, rental tenants have to be obligated to do that. So we've taken that into consideration. Again, the concept of this is an eco type building. And so we do want to maintain some of that greenery, but we've reduced it down pretty significantly to listen to some of the comments that have come in the last couple months.
Commissioner comment? Who wants to go first?
I'll go. This is Liesl. So I don't have a lot of comments. I prefer the lighter scheme without the wood. I just think it's simpler and more refined. The next comment is on the 2nd Avenue elevation, so the north elevation. There's one long facade that is fairly just long and flat, the sort of western end of the building. And if that could be broken up like one more time, similar to the west elevation where there's sort of breaks in it. And I don't know if there's got to be some sort of way to do that. I just think that facade, you know, certain times of day might just be really intimidating given the size of it. And it's just kind of, I think there's a little bit of a relief in it, but it's not very visible sort of in elevation. It might be nice to break that. Question I had, balconies on this building. Are some of these alcoves?
Yeah, those are what we colloquially call innie balconies versus outie balconies. They are contained within the building facade. Yep.
So everywhere?
I think I would say almost every unit has a balcony, except for maybe I think it's like 8 or 10 that are micro units. But every unit does have a balcony. You can start to see some of those alcoves. Not great in elevations, but the renderings show it a little bit better.
Yeah, the perspective views would give a little bit more of that. You can see them on the sides.
Okay, I just wanted a better understanding of that. And I think obviously in the past we've looked at, you know, the materiality of those sort of innie balconies, and like obviously the fireproof building I think has ephes on it. I don't know if we'd want to see ephes on the inside of the balconies, things like that.
Yeah, we're going to stay away from that too. EFIS is pretty damaging, and obviously as an apartment building, we don't want those necessarily where people can touch and ram their porch furniture into it. So yeah, totally agree on that.
Maybe that's a place to put the wood too.
Mhm.
Get some interest, so it's a little more residential in scale. And then again, I appreciate, obviously you guys are familiar with having a green wall at Gravity and keeping that green and the challenges of that. So I appreciate sort of keeping the green in the sort of community spaces and not sort of having it be a huge design element for the rest of the building.
Appreciate that. Yeah, thank you.
Next. I might as well go. Let's back up to the top of the building, and I read off a bunch of criteria under the code about what is and isn't appropriate. And I think if you consider the top of this building in isolation, it's obviously a big improvement to change to the material you did. And I also think it's an improvement to increase the slope of the western part of the building, even though the overall height's about the same, the apparent height is less. But even with those things, considered in isolation, there is almost nothing appropriate from a code standpoint about this. Now, that doesn't, we don't approve parts of buildings, we approve entire buildings. So the majority of your building is this tall thing. And I'm looking for a way to try to reach consensus on this. And the only way I can find to do that is to say, okay, fine, we can have a very artsy top of the building, but something, somewhere about this building has to be appropriate. And that would be the base and how it relates to the first 2 or 3 stories and how that relates to and intersects with this really artsy thing you've got going on top of it. And as far as the base is concerned, I think you've taken steps back rather than forward. I think that the two materials you presented as alternatives are less appropriate than the red brick that we had before. Certainly both the dimensions and the like two-tone kind of thing, the pink brick is something we don't see anywhere else in the neighborhood, even though some parts of this building are supposed to echo materials used in historic buildings. Even worse is the white brick, which is found only on one other building, and that's the White Castle building. And I won't reopen old wounds by debating whether that was a horrible mistake or just a small one. So I think we really need to work on how the lower portion reads and intersects with the upper part of the building, which won't necessarily change much, its dimensions, the size, the amount of bang for buck you get. But I think you're headed in the wrong direction trying to make the lower portion of the building your bling. This is the Kaufman brand part of it. This is the part that needs to say we're embracing the short north and its architecture by using fenestration, by using last time I thought we had some consensus urging you to look around at other buildings like the one across the street from you or the Jackson or several other buildings that we listed that use broken down pieces that are more the size of a commercial building that you would encounter in the short north, and incorporating that into your facade. I don't think you need to go up much more than 3 stories with something like that. And then you wouldn't have to have brick climbing 4 or 5 stories up on your building. But I think you need to definitely find a way both to break up the forms that you've got going on to make something appropriate and relating to historic structures about this. I think it's kind of a waste of time to try to compare this to other new builds. Everything is its own project. I think what you need to be looking at for your cues from the bottom of this thing, this project, is contributing commercial buildings in the neighborhood, and what elements can we pull from them into this project that will make it fit attractively with your eco towers.
I could just butt in here really quickly. Alex, would you mind just going to page number, I think it's 13 in this. I think right now we're looking at an appendix that doesn't necessarily show the concept that we're really looking at. Yeah, thank you. That's good, just to have people be able to look at that as we talk through it. Thank you. Yep, that's perfect. Good.
And one thing that you can do is you've still got you've got brick above the second floor on the towers. It looks still like a pasted on material. I realize you have some relief between that and the aluminum, but it's not much. And boy, if you could, pull that out so that it looks like an upward extension of your first and second floors, so that the brick thing reads as a brick sub-building, rather than looking like a brick applique on an aluminum building. That would be much better. I've monopolized the floor long enough, considering that we've got 10 minutes left. Another commissioner.
Aaron, I don't mind going if you're not ready, Aaron.
Go, Sean.
Perfect. All right, so we're just going to break it down just really, really simple. I would agree with the commissioner's comments thus far. But the interesting thing is I have a different feeling about the roof structure. So it seems like the roof itself, I think, is trying to create that sense of compatibility, which I think was kind of part of the story. And its tie in terms of looking at some of those parties, and I'm using an architectural term, but that's kind of the characterization sketches that are representative of what they're trying to do in terms of making that transition. So as far as the massing and overall height, I think that what Jack is really kind of, suggestion is really trying to play up the base condition. I'm not certain if maybe some of the step backs or I'm going to say the setbacks when we start getting into the second floor to third floor, or if it's the third floor to the fourth floor, it's just kind of balancing that setback to be able to allow the more, fun, so to speak, or the metal panel or whatever this other object is to kind of recede a little bit more. And then kind of play up this kind of pedestrian scale, and maybe that helps break down the scale of the overall mass. So I was making an analogy of this transitional site with maybe the Sutton building is roughly 6 stories and it transitions to 4. I know that it was a heck of an effort on that west side elevation to transition towards the west, and I think that there was probably a floor that was taken off. I know the programming, it would probably hurt in terms of another floor of getting the 6 to the 4. But I think that maybe that can be balanced potentially with however the base is articulated. So I'm not saying that the floor needs to be taken off. I'm just making a comparison to what I think is kind of an appropriate transition into the neighborhood. The materials themselves, again, high quality, obviously. I think brick being, the base condition, I think that's totally suitable. I think that's appropriate. I think that what happens is there's a certain balance in terms of, too much articulation on the brick, because I know that you're trying to kind of stay within a certain language, but it needs to still feel like that there's some thought. There needs to be, still feel that there's some articulation to it, but there's a fine balance, and I'm sure you got a great team around you that you'll be able to find that balance. But I think that to Jack's point, he's looking for more attention to the base, which I can completely agree and completely embrace. I just want to point out.
Please mute. Please mute, sir. Thank you.
Somebody's making noise. Thank you.
I got it.
And I just want to point out, I'm not raising issues with the upper part of the building. I'm just pointing out that because it is so far off code that we need to find somewhere else to get appropriate. All right. Aaron.
I have one more comment real quick, Aaron, if you don't mind. I'm sorry. It's just,
no, you're fine. Go ahead.
Really you were quickly, done, Sean.
I'm no problem. I'm trying to get through them fast, guys. The garage planning, I think, is very interesting because of this particular project. I think that the simplicity of the project is very important. So I'm very interested myself about mechanicals and trying to understand, where these things that, create and make a building where they're going to live while they're still being balanced in terms of trying to kind of maintain that sense of simplicity. So I don't know if it's the garage level planning that will give us more confidence or a little bit more understanding about, the infrastructure and how some of those things will work. I think that's just beneficial given the scale of the project as we kind of continue to move forward. Light pollution, I know that there was a note about the light pollution being addressed, but it still seems that the floor level elevation is still transparent, that there's, no, let's just say a crash wall or something of that nature high based upon where the brick is located that would mitigate those issues. And I'm more so being sensitive to the properties to the north, the properties to the west. And that's just high level. The alley to the east, I'm not necessarily worried about. Okay. And then the last one is just, again, with the mechanicals is water management strategies. Again, this building is going to be so successful if it can stay simple, right? If it can stay simple and clean. So as we kind of continue, I think we should challenge ourselves to just understand those things early because they may start to influence the end result. And I only say that because the way our process is right now is a little bit different. We're only going to see this once possibly. You guys have promised that you're going to come back, which I understand. I hope that this is a project that basically, continues to have engagement with the commission at certain milestones as an opportunity, because I think that's the thing that we're not able to do that. You guys are challenged, we're challenged in the end, and then ultimately, I think we just see something and we're starting to relate it back to what was originally conceptualized, and they don't necessarily meet up. And there's so many influences to that. So I think that sometimes if we understand those things early, or at least we can ride along with you guys, I think that's where we have a kind of a beneficial kind of end result. So that's my comments for today, guys. Thank you.
Yeah, those are good. Thank you.
Aaron?
Okay, thanks. I wanted to start off by saying, can you hear me? Yeah? Okay.
Yes.
I wanted to start off by saying that I think the latest rendition with the silver material on the top and the lighter brick on the bottom was an appropriate response to the public comment that we heard at the last meeting held in March. I know that the residents in the community were looking for a lighter material on top, and I think that that was accomplished. I would echo Jack's comment about potentially having a little bit more relief in between the brick base and the metal top to kind of set that apart as that, historic bottom and modern top. I was wondering if there's going to be a schematic for the drop-off, like a drop-off or delivery zone, similar to what you have out in front of Gravity, where there's like an Uber pickup drop-off spot.
knowing that parking is an issue in this neighborhood and that likely a lot of your residents or visitors will be using some sort of rideshare service. So I'm sorry, I can't remember if that was included in the packet and it's not loading right now for me, but some sort of diagram if that's going to be included or not.
Sure.
Okay, so my main concern is still the separation of public and private space, primarily with the first floor townhomes along Price Ave. The elevation doesn't seem to have changed since the last submission, and I don't think that like a 0-foot setback and 2-step elevation is enough separation given the condition that it's a narrower street, a narrower sidewalk, it's not on High Street, and there are residences you know, adjacent and across the street. I think that it will feel like you're standing in someone's living room when you're on the sidewalk. And I don't think that's a comfortable position for either the person on the sidewalk or the person in the living room.
Mm-hmm. Okay, those are good feedback. Thank you.
Much, those are my comments.
Yeah, this is Brett. Is it okay if I just make a quick comment?
You may.
Thank you. I appreciate everybody's time. I'll be brief. Thank you for the feedback. I haven't been able to participate in these meetings, but I'm happy to listen in and hear how we're progressing. You know, I was down in the cleanup after the protests with my kids a couple weekends ago, and it occurred to me that I have lived in the Short North, owned property, and started my business for the last 25 consecutive years. I first moved into Short North in 1995. And I tell you that because what we're building here is not intended to be about some kind of Kaufman brand. It's really about our passion and love for this neighborhood and our belief that we can really bring something that can last, have value that lasts forever. You know, the roof lines were really intended to try to replicate a residential neighborhood. We could easily go flat roof, you know, kind of like the Preferred project or like the Pizzuti project, and step down and, you know, kind of get this probably through easier. But, you know, we really are trying to do something that we believe when it's all said and done will really make us all feel good and proud. Some of the comments that I'm hearing about the base, I think we can definitely take into account and see if there's a way for us to make that feel a little bit more familiar to the history of the neighborhood. We do have a lot of limitations as it pertains to setbacks and cutting out of the building. We just, at a certain point, you can't make the deal work, especially in this climate, if we eat into the program any more than we have. So that's my biggest concern. You know, we will do everything we can. We'd like to be able to get approved, you know, soon. We certainly are happy to continue to work with you for subsequent approvals as necessary, but we're kind of, again, getting to a point where we just don't have that much more to shave out of this thing from a massing standpoint.
Brett, I wanted to just address a couple things you said. Even though I was critical of the roof, my point is to move on and try to make this more appropriate at the base, given the issues with the roof. I
understood that. I appreciate
okay, good. And the other thing is that my suggestion, and I think Sean's, with respect to, and maybe other commissioners, is really to pull out some of the upper stories you've got in brick towards the street and make them parallel to the outer boundaries of the first and second floor. So you end up with more space, not less. Although, you know, there's obviously some cost in having some difference in your floor plans as a result of that. So I think we all agree that the basic scale of this is doable. It's, you know, you're not facing the sorts of problems you did with your previous projects of trying to get too much program onto too little property. It's just a question of making this intersect better with the neighborhood at the street level. Have I spoken for somebody other than me, or we okay? All right.
Thank you, Jack. I would echo that, Jack. I'm not necessarily saying that, you know, that there's a concern. What I was just trying to patch in is, you know, there's a certain balance in terms of, you know, simplifying the base, but at the same time being able to provide some articulation that is not necessarily replicated, but familiar potentially, just in terms of scale and articulation, that the base is not felt as though it was left behind. And that may enhance the quality of the pedestrian scale, and then at least let the upper portion more recede as some of the color transition changes that have been done is intended to do.
But the upper portion recedes if you pull some of the lower portion out, right?
I'll let the designers and team work through that effort. I guess I'm just saying that I don't disagree, but yeah.
I can't design a doghouse, so I better shut up now.
Yeah.
We're at 9 o'clock
We got
on
it.
the
I think
nose.
it's helpful. I think we understand, and I appreciate it.
Are we at 9 o'clock, Jamie? Are we about to turn into pumpkins? Do we have a motion? Thank you all for coming, and do we have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
To adjourn.
All right, second.
Second.
We're adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
everyone.
Appreciate it, guys. Have a good day.
Staff, can you stay for 1 second, please?
Yes.
I'm very disappointed.
Commissioners kicked out?
No, you can stay too. I just wanted to let them know that I wanted to try to have us start tomorrow a little bit later. This has been yet another 12-hour day, more than 12-hour day, excuse me, 13.